Hello, welcome to the UFC 208 predictions. This is for Home versus Randomy. It'll take place on 11th of February 2017 at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. I'm going to start off this video podcast with a bit of a rant, I'm all for new weight divisions being added, and when I heard there was a new women's weight class, I was very excited about the options at 125. I think you need to have at least 15 good fighters, 30 high-level fighters to make a division a reality. The sad thing is that neither of the ladies who are fighting at 145 or for the 145 belt are 145ers. Even outside the UFC, Holm was fighting at 135 and Randomy fought a couple of times at 145. I understand that they wanted to give Cyborg this division, but when it was obvious that Cyborg wouldn't be fighting, I don't understand the logic in pursuing this, especially with the belt. Outside of these two women, they're some of the most decorated combatants in female combat sports. Holly Holm, one of the most decorated boxers, and Randomy, one of the most decorated Muay Thai fighters. They're both deserving of respect. Holm has even won the UFC gold, but since then she's lost twice. And the Randomy, the MMA record, it's not deserving of a title bout in any way, shape or form. The rankings came in to help sell fights when titles weren't on the line. And now what we're getting is we're getting flooded with interim titles and these kind of fake titles just to sell pay-per-views and headline cards. The UFC are weakening their brand, and soon being a champion will be meaningless. Who you beat still mean a lot, but the belt won't. I don't want to see a 145 women's division because I think at most there are 12 women who could compete on a normal UFC undercard. I don't think there's a lot of star power there beyond Cyborg. The men's heavyweight division suffers similarly due to lack of talent, so this isn't something specific to the women, but if the UFC really wants to build a division, then they should use Invicta. It's already on UFC Fight Pass, so you can use this organization where Cyborg was or still is the 145 champion. They can put money into it, build it up, get a little bit of name recognition among fans among Fight Pass, and then just absorb it like they did with the 115 division. Okay, that's the rant over. Let's get to the predictions. Rick Glenn against Philip Nover. Nover is on the verge of being cut for the second time by the UFC, and he faces a tough opponent in former World Series of Fighting champion Rick Glenn. Nover has never lost by TKO or by KO. Glenn has some very impressive power. Nover was extremely well hyped, overhyped, let's say, in his early career. That's not his fault. And I think this is going to be a very exciting battle that's going to go all the way to the judges. I'm going to go with Nover because I think the fear of being cut by the UFC is going to force his hand in this one. So Nover by decision. Ryan LaFleur against Roan Carneiro. LaFleur is the younger and taller guy. He's only lost to Damian Maia. I see him picking up this one. I don't know if it's going to be a TKO, sub or decision, so Shot in the Dark says round 2 TKO. Luis Enrique, or Henrique, yeah, Luis Enrique. Luis Enrique against Marcin Tybura. I like the look of Luis Enrique, and he's filled out a lot since his early days as a light heavyweight. I'm a Brit living in Poland, so I know a little bit about Tybura. I think he's going to win this one by first round KO. I expect these guys to tie it early as well. So if it does go into the second round or further, then it could be very poor, let's say. And in that case, we'll all lose and it'll be a toss-up for the judges to who wins this one. Next up, Uncle Creepy's back, or let's hope he's back, This guy has been cursed. Since joining the UFC, he's had 9 scheduled bouts cancelled. He hasn't fought since January 2015. And he's coming up against a kid in Jared Brooks, who, unknown to a certain degree, is unbeaten. He's won 9 times since McCall last fought. So I'm going to take a shot in the dark and go with the debutant Brooks by decision. This literally could go each and every way, but I expect it to be a great match. Nick Lentz against Islam Makhachev. I think Nick Lentz might be the better all-round fighter, but I feel Makhachev will win by choke, let's say submission. I actually thought Makhachev's loss to Adriano Martins was a very premature stoppage. Makhachev did get dropped, but he had his head looking up off the canvas. He was bringing his leg up to defend himself when Martins was falling up, and the ref kind of just jumped in very hastily. So yeah, I think Makhachev by submission, second round. Wilson Reyes versus Ulka Sasaki. Sasaki has a big reach advantage here, but he does prefer to grapple rather than fight at range. So I think that it works in Reyes' favor. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and if he's smart, he'll take this to the ground, and I think he'll catch one of those long limbs. I'm going to pick Reyes by submission in the third round. Dustin Poirier versus Jim Miller. These guys have been in the UFC forever. Poirier has been in since 2011, Miller since 2008. Miller's enjoying a bit of a resurgence, and I think if it goes to distance, he'll win on points. Poirier's best chance of success is on the feet, I feel, and Cowboy Cerrone is the only guy to beat Miller via TKO. I think Miller's going to keep the train rolling, and he gets a decision victory. This is also my pick for fight of the night. Next up, Glover Teixeira against Jared Cannonier. The big question for me is how Glover reacts after the Anthony Johnson knockout. I think the old Glover would have won this, but Cannonier has fought at heavyweight, so he can take a good shot and he can also give one out. Sometimes once the nut has been cracked, it stays cracked. And because of this question about Glover Teixeira's chin, I think Cannonier takes it. First round TKO. However, Glover's a BJJ black belt under Luigi Mondelli, so if he can get this to the ground, he could win by jiu-jitsu even if he has a weak chin. Next up, we have Jacare against Tim Boetsch. I wasn't very excited about this when it got announced because I'm a big Jacare fan, and I think he's one fight away from the title. This certainly doesn't elevate him in any way at all, but I think it's a good, honest fight. I think Boetsch has a puncher's chance. I think Jacare has a puncher's chance as well, but it's much more likely that he'll get him out of the way by submission. The big question for Jacare, though, is who's next? It doesn't look like Bisping's going to fight until the summer, and Bisping's going to fight Romero next. So who's going to be up next for Jacare? I don't know. The next and co-main event is Anderson the Spider Silva against Derek Brunson. Actually, Brunson lost to Jacare very early in his career because he doesn't close the distance well, and he did the same thing last time out against Robert Whittaker. So I feel that this is a big hole in his game, one that the Spider will utilize unless he's addressed it. Anderson Silva is one of the great counter fighters. So if Brunson makes the mistake in closing the distance, Anderson will turn his lights out in a heartbeat. This could end in the first round, maybe in the second or third. So I'm going to pick Anderson Silva to win via TKO in the third round. Also, I have a video looking back at the UFC 153 with Anderson Silva and Glover Teixeira down in Brazil. And that is from 2012, Anderson Silva's last victory. It's a bit of a surprise when you think about it, that Anderson Silva is one of the greatest of all times, and it's going on for, into the fifth year that he hasn't won. Okay, this brings us to the main event. Actually, the rant at the beginning of the show about this not being worthy of a title, I still think it's true, but stylistically, I think this is a great fight. Holm hasn't been KO'd in MMA. only 3 times in her extensive boxing and short kickboxing career. De Randamie had an impressive Muay Thai career with 37 wins. I think if De Randamie can push Holm up against the cage and grind her, that's her best opportunity. I think she's stronger than Holm there. But I expect Holm to spend the first couple of rounds dancing around and tire out De Randamie. De Randamie throws everything behind the shots, and she's very powerful, probably more powerful than Holm, I would say. But I think Holm can dance around her and then turn up the pressure in the last 3 rounds and pick off a points victory. So that's the decisions for 208, my predictions for 208. Please have a look at the retrospective of UFC 153. Like, share, and enjoy the fights.